Okay, greetings once again. So now we're going to talk about Jesus. Was he real as a real person that lived in this world, or was he merely a literary character? And to be consistent with my theme, that we should focus on what everybody can agree to, everyone can stipulate to, that it is not in dispute. Surely it is not in dispute that Jesus was a literary figure. That's not in dispute because the texts that speak of this character exist. Nobody can dispute that. And that these particular texts, even though the substance and the content might be in dispute as to whether or not these things were really said or they really happened, but that they were composed and they were written at about the time I spoke of earlier, which is sometime starting around 70 AD until maybe sometime around 150 AD, something like that. This is the New Testament zone where they're referring to the works and events and, and the sayings of Jesus. So now, if Jesus were only a fictional person, it begs the imagination to wonder why there were people in Rome that would, when given the option to like go free or to be thrown into the Colosseum and ripped to shreds because they wouldn't repudiate their own allegiance to Jesus, why in the world would they do that for someone that's merely a literary character? That doesn't make sense to me. Of course, there's a lot of crazy people in the world. I got that. And but it just you got to be pretty crazy and pretty gone, far gone on a really whacked out uh, zone to go down a road like that. And then finally, you have the Talmud that was composed around 100 AD or so, something like that, or the refreshed Talmud 2.0 that was written around, again, 100 AD by the Jews. And in the Talmud, they've got some remarks about Jesus, okay, and they say that he's boiling in excrement and for all eternity, and then Mary was a whore, his mother, and that Jesus was a bastard, which means he's an illegitimate son, which means he didn't come from a conventional family and a proper marriage and a mother and father, and so on. So the question is, why in the world would these Jews go to so much trouble to trash talk Jesus so badly if he was a fictional person, he didn't exist, and he wasn't real? That sort of doesn't make sense either. Also, finally, is that Jesus is mentioned on third-party, contemporary third-party references. For example, the historian Josephus, that's Josephus, you can look it up online, it's pretty easy to find. Granted, that's not the strongest evidence. There's nothing that's conclusive in terms of our own modern scientific way of determining the matter. However, again, that people would be willing to get ripped to shreds by lions, and that the Jews would go out of their way to make numerous references to trash talk Jesus badly in their Talmud around 100 AD is a pretty good indicator that Jesus was not just a literary character, but he actually was somebody, and he walked around and said and did stuff. So we're going to talk about that more later. And the next part, I'm going to talk about why the other proof that also tends to support that he was not just a literary character.